Hey guys, welcome to episode 16 of the Blockchain Bandits podcast. You're here with me, Jeff.
Myself, Courtney.
And me, Andy.
This week, you've got all of us here again. None of us are off, mess around with girls or being drunk or hungover and pretend to be ill. Once again, 2 times in a row, Courtney has made it. Thank you, Courtney, for putting aside all your personal stuff to grace us with your presence once more. He's made us feel really bad with it. He came, turned up late. He was all like, "Oh, I'm here, guys. Could have been here doing this and that." And it's just got so.
Oh my god.
But anyway,
wait, I was just wanting to see where that was gonna go because none of that was true. So I'm just gonna take over Jeffrey's part of this now. So guys, the disclaimer: we are not financial advisors, guys. Nothing we say can be held against us in any shape or form. We are simply just trying to provide a service to actually make everybody happy in the blockchain space.
Anyway, all the stuff I said was true. But he was right about the fact that we're not financial advisors. So yeah, take everything with a pinch of salt, do your own research and all that stuff. But yeah, this week we'll be talking about just how the markets have been recently. Just a quick recap of that. We'll be talking about the biggest ICOs that have come yet. So Venezuela dropped their ICO, and so did Telegram, the messenger app. They had their own ICO, and it was huge, and we'll be going into that. We'll also be talking about the new form of ICOs that has been suggested by Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum. A DAICO, which is a mix between a DAO and an ICO. We'll be going into that as well. We'll also be talking about regulation in Gibraltar and Malta and how that could set a precedent for the rest of the ICO market and cryptocurrency space and blockchain space. So yeah, first up, the markets. How have they been this past week? Like, what do they look like? Well, there's not been much movement. Price spiked a bit, went towards the 12k level and dropped back below 10k. So right now it sits around 9,471. That's Bitcoin against the dollar. There are a number of factors play there. Like the dollar strength has increased, so that has pushed the Bitcoin price down against the dollar. Also, there's not really been much movement, it's just been sideways, and you can kind of expect this consolidation after the crash that we had previously. Andy made a good point about someone buying up quite a lot of Bitcoin recently.
Yeah, this was about basically while our last podcast, so episode 15, was being released, a big player, we don't know who, bought up a lot of Bitcoin. I don't exactly have the numbers up, but this made drastic changes for where we were last week. Basically the price of Bitcoin did rise quite a lot. What we're seeing now is a bit of consolidation, a bit of recovery, a bit of sideways action. We did kind of say that it was going to play around the support region of around 9k, 10k.
Yeah.
That's where it's been stuck. But yeah, it seems expected right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens next week, really.
Yeah, it's a bit. What would we say? It's a bit speculative to say whether or not there will be a proper recovery of Bitcoin. Obviously, everybody's hoping that Bitcoin will shoot through the roof again. But what would really be the factors? Do you reckon that would actually push it up?
The same factors there always is, really just more people buying and pushing it up, and just confidence returning into the market. I think slowly it will happen, but who knows? Yeah. It has certain barriers to get past to do that. I think if we want to see a definite, like we've mentioned this before, but 13k, if it breaks around the 13k level, we can expect more confidence to enter the market and more investors to jump in, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think it's since last week anyway. I'd say the volume has been a big one.
Yeah.
It's decreased in volume by quite a lot, so you're seeing less buy orders, a lot more sell orders this week in general. But personally, but yeah, I think we would need an increase in volume. We'd need more people into the market. We'd need more people trading, whether that be buy or sell. And that hopefully that'll give it that extra kick or push. That's usually the start of it anyway.
Definitely, I agree. Let's see how Ethereum's doing, which is the other guy, the other big boy in the market.
It's been on a slight drop recently, I know for a fact, but they're kind of looking quite similar.
Yeah, it's just a lot of consolidations. It's in a kind of range area here, around between 900 and 800 really. Even 1K.
Bounce. Oh, I forgot what it's called. I forgot the term, the TA for it.
Oh, the Elliott wave theory, that sort of thing. Yeah. There's you could kind of see that sort of shape forming. We kind of have to just wait and see. Again, same situation. If it breaks or get above 1K, I think you can start to and holds. You can start to see confidence growing up again, growing with it, possibly. But yeah, like we just have to wait and see. Patience is key here, and this is where the big boys, or what separates the men from the boys in this situation, or the women from the girls, because we're all about quality here.
Yeah, like I think it does look like it's reaching one of those levels where I would actually buy, like, especially if it does go anywhere near 700 again.
Yeah.
$700. I think that's a bargain. Yeah, I can't remember the last time it's been cheap. It's hit that range in a while, so yeah, I would say one Ethereum for around that range is definitely somewhere is where their support seems.
I agree. I got some at 800 not too long ago, and then again below that, just above 700 whilst it was crashing. So it's definitely a bargain area in my opinion, but you guys gotta do your own TA.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving on. Next up, we'll be talking about Telegram and Venezuela. Okay, so Telegram is a messaging app. If you don't know what it is, it's kind of like WhatsApp. It just has a few different features, but essentially it's just like WhatsApp. And they decided to launch their own ICO, and they made up to $750 million, billion with a B, dollars in their ICO. That is huge. And they weren't the only ones. Venezuela, as I think we've spoken about before, they were launching their ICO, and they finally launched it, and they made around the same amount, $750 million. This is huge. There's a lot to talk about in terms of what this means, and there's a lot under this, mainly because of the sheer amount of money that came into this, especially in a point where the market is not at its strongest or at its peak, and yet there's so much confidence in these ICOs, which are kind of these aren't even the strongest use cases, because you can argue that Venezuela, why would you put your faith in a dictator and what he wants to do? And also Telegram, what are they going to do with all that money? Like, what does a messaging app need with all that with all those funds? And so yeah, we're going to get stuck here.
Well, on this point, so for a little while now, I've noticed that in this blockchain space, what we've required is kind of support from the industries that we currently have. And now, like, taking you back a little bit, last year we went to the summit, and we got to see how people are, starting to get into the space, and we even saw like big players like IBM, etc., actually suggesting that they're going to go around to different companies implementing, basically distributed ledger technology, across different industries. And now what we haven't seen, except for maybe Kodak, is actually like a company that's well recognized and has support ready, and them actually launching an ICO, and actually what will happen. And I think Telegram is a good example of that. Everybody knows about Telegram, and if you don't know, you might have heard of it, or there's a big usage of Telegram, across the world. So it's kind of a case of how high would they go, or how low would they go, but flipping around, like how good could they be? And I think that is an example. And again, a country launching their ICO and everything else. Whilst, yeah, you know, there's all the other political reasons and all the rest of it, you know that for a fact, not everybody reads into things or, you know, actually delves into what's going on behind it. They just hear a country's doing that. It must be a good investment. Throw money into it. And I think that's what we're seeing. That's my opinion. We're seeing that kind of effect. And I think we're going to continue to see that effect. The reason why right now it might have had such a big impact is because people aren't actually invested in other ICOs or other coins. So what they're suggesting is, you know what? Boom, this one's coming up. It's pretty much guaranteed to do quite well in their heads. Throw money into it, and see where it goes. And I think that's kind of what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because obviously $750 million at launch is very impressive for ICO, but then we're dealing with a country and one of the a very well-known application in the community. Again, Telegram is kind of like WhatsApp. It's an instant messaging service. They have a lot less decryption with Telegram. It's used a lot more worldwide, and basically usually it's used a lot in the cryptocurrency market because ICOs tend to make messaging boards off in Telegram. So basically you can have about thousands of people in a group. So what you have is a lot of people who tend to buy ICOs. They use Telegram to stay updated with what's going on with their ICO. So I think Telegram have done well there with their marketing because they know that the people who tend to invest use their app.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, a few months ago, Kik, which is a messaging service which is mostly used in America, in North America, they brought out ICO. I'm assuming similar technology, but they brought out ICO and it didn't do very well. It raised a lot of money, but it didn't do very well. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Telegram. We were just talking off the pod, saying how doing it first isn't always right.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best people in the game, in any game, are not necessarily the ones who come first. It's the ones who time it right, and they know what they're doing, and they're the ones who profit. So maybe Telegram are gonna learn from Kik's mistakes and profit off them. It'll be interesting to see.
Oh yeah, definitely, I agree. The fact that they're so big, they're so huge, definitely contribute to it, and it might set precedent. Other big companies or established companies might look at this and be like, we could do with $750 million. Why don't we launch our own ICO? And they might follow through and do the same thing. But at the same time, this could leave the ICO space, which is already being abused, to be abused even further. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, because I think on that point, it's like, what are they doing with that money? Like your ICO, you raised money in order to actually develop, to create this, amazing product. In effect, you're kind of just transitioning your current product, I would assume, to the new technology. Do you need that much money for that? Like, what is your opinion of developers? 1 billion? I don't know. What is the reason behind it? Because Bitcoin, for instance, when it started, I'm pretty sure they didn't have $1 billion or whatever to start what they did or develop what they did. And how many other ICOs are starting on that, that much money? And then, then as you're saying, Jeff, you've got to kind of think of what if they just cashed out, man, of the market? What's going to happen to the market?
Yeah, it's because in the case of obviously with an ICO, with most ICOs, you have to buy your cryptocurrencies or your token with ETH. So they've just handed over $250 million ETH to Telegram. So now Telegram has $250 million ETH to dump on the market if they want to, which they will eventually. They'll have to cash out and use those funds for other things. So that's just one thing also to bear in mind. But also, other companies now, like I mentioned before, will start doing this because it's a great opportunity to raise funds. It's like it's an unregulated market, and it's pretty straightforward. Although regulations are coming, it's not here yet, and we still have to basically deal with cowboy systems. What was that ICO the other day? A few weeks ago. And it was a scam, and they had an exit scam, and people went onto their website, and it just had the word penis on it.
Yeah,
it just had the word penis on it. Everyone wanted to check what happened to their funds, what was going on with the project, and it just said penis, and that was it. And they just never heard from them again. That is the sort of that's why you gotta be careful in this space. That's why we're always telling you guys to do your own research and be careful, because there's certain people out there that literally they don't care about you. They just want to take your money, and that's why you have to make sure what you're investing in is actually a product that's going to be useful in the world, that could actually have a long-term application, because it's dangerous. Like, there's people that probably invested a huge portion, if not all, of their life savings, and that's what they had to go to. Like, it's like, you might laugh at it at one point, but when you see it from a different point of view, if you were that person, you'd be fuming, and there'd be nothing you could do about it.
Yeah, I think people right now will be listening, going, you know what? I would never invest in something like that. How could I get caught out with somebody just posting my penis, and that's what I've invested in? But then, like, yeah, you might be thinking that now, but say a company comes around, and they're that bigger Apple, and they bring out something like I don't know, iBlockchain or something, and iBlockchain is the in thing, and everybody starts investing in iBlockchain. You don't know what they're going to really do with it. Like, yeah, it's a great team behind it, it's Apple, they're reputable, but what is tech like? What are they actually producing? What are they giving? And then I'm not gonna lie, I think this is the first time I'll actually say you've got to start thinking about the coin, because yeah, it might be pumping up all the way to like billions, but then if it drops, yeah,
But the thing is with gaining revenue, I think it's good we realise this, because this is something which tends to be how it is, especially in the cryptocurrency community, is branding with like a lot of things is everything. And it tends to be the things what are well branded, or like they're just a bigger brand, they're what generate money. So obviously Bitcoin, biggest brand, not exactly the best technology. Again, Telegram, the fact that it is so prevalent in the community is gonna generate so much money. It's generated as much as a goddamn country in making their own currency. Which has done really well and beat all expectations. $250 million. That's so good. Like, even how flawed Venezuela is, like, I'm sure they're happy they took a risk.
Yeah, and when it worked out for
it
them.
worked out exactly. Like, I mean, that's the markets, right?
Imagine Facebook came out with their own ICO. They'd make so much. They'd probably hit 2
I
billion.
bet they're scheming, man.
Yeah, definitely. They're implementing. They're waiting. Maybe they'll do it through WhatsApp, or maybe any other of their properties will do it. And then one day, Google, who's a big boy in the tech space, will do something. And but maybe they're waiting for regulation, because they've got a lot more to lose. And so we'll see what happens with them. They've been very quiet. But in the background, I know they've been investing in certain ICOs and companies that are launching ICOs. So it's definitely interesting, and it brings legitimacy. Like, there's pros and cons to it. Like, it brings legitimacy to the space. It puts more money in the space to good people, but it also puts money to bad people, and it also might saturate the space as well. So it's one of those things, but this is how things grow. Like, the internet, everything, any type of business, any type of industry, this is how it grows. You got the little self-starters, the guys that the early adopters and things like that. Then people realize the potential, throw money at it, and then the big boys come into play and throw even more money at it. Then what often happens is it pops, like, and that's why everyone says it's a bubble. But just because it pops doesn't mean it's going to disappear. It just means that the prices will head down to like a the way Michael Jr. actually explains it in our chat group. If you're in there, it goes to its mean level, which is basically where it's supposed to be, and
It's like an equilibrium point.
exactly like an equilibrium point where it's supposed to be, and then it will just move from there and probably head up again, and that's the cycle. This is we're in a Keynesian economy, and this is how it's all going to work with everything. Don't get scared of it. You just have to be smart with it. Don't buy at the top. Just don't spend more than you can afford. It's just those simple rules will keep you alive in this space, and just keep disciplined, and that's all it is really. And enjoy it as well. You need to enjoy learning about the space, and if you don't enjoy it, why are you doing it really? That's the, come on. But get in, get involved, read about stuff, I don't know, start a blog, these things will help you focus on the right things actually, and help you stay safe, because if you're constantly looking into it, you'll know what to look out for. And that's kind of like what we've done, because we've looked into it quite extensively. We can tell when something is going to be dodgy. We're not oracles or anything, we're not perfect, but we just kind of get a vibe, or we kind of know sometimes that we're right and sometimes we're wrong, but it's just better to be safe than sorry, really. Yeah. But speaking of the space and how dangerous it is, obviously we mentioned regulation quite briefly. Gibraltar, I think, Courtney, you were saying?
Yeah, so basically, we've been talking about regulation for a little while now. So it seemed a bit fitting to do a bit more research into regulation itself. But what was interesting to read, basically, was the fact that Gibraltar was actually the first first place, to actually introduce regulation. Okay, so start of Jan, pretty much, 2018, they actually basically set off rules, and it was the Gibraltar Financial Services Commission. A bit of a tongue twister there. But they basically put across this legislation that suggested that any sort of transition of value in regards to distributed ledger technology, blockchain technology, would actually have to go through them. So any money made basically through blockchain technology needs to go through them. And now they kind of have a setup which is quite interesting. There's loads of aspects to it, but there is like fees and stuff like that. So if you were to set up your ICO, so there's like a initial kind of application fee that you have to pay, which is £2,000, and then subsequently there's like a full application fee that you have to pay, and depending on the complexity of exactly your kind of ICO, so will kind of incur additional fees, and they rank up to about even flat about 30k, so it is kind of expensive, especially there's an actual annual fee as well, so kind of like a service kind of that you're getting with them regulating you each year, and kind of approving you to keep going each year, and again that's depending on the complexity, it goes from like 10 to 30k, and on the side of all of that, basically it's their way of just kind of controlling what kind of happens to people in Gibraltar, making sure that in effect these ICOs aren't taking liberties and just ripping off people within the country. It's been easier for them, apparently through word of mouth. It's actually been kind of easy for them to actually implement this. The reason being is that they were part of UK and all the rest of it, and their legislation isn't so far off from ours, but they're not governed by us anymore. So for them to actually implement this, it wasn't too difficult. They've got everything that they've got a lot of things set up, utilizing what they had from us. So it's quite interesting to actually see that they were the first to do it. Now Malta, on the flip side of things, they've looked at that and they said, well, they're doing it, it's a good time to get into the space and start regulating. And the Maltese government have actually started their, steps towards regulating, the blockchain world, basically. And right now, I'd say it's a big move. It was a big move for Gibraltar to do it, because you don't know where it's really going to go, how it's going to impact, your economy, and the Maltese government, they kind of are taking the steps forward to do the same. Now, what's interesting also is the fact that the rest of the EU, in effect, are scared to do so. A number of countries, excuse me, a part of the EU have actually stepped up and said, well, I don't know if this is a great idea to kind of introduce regulation now, just because of growth and, where things are going. Even us, you had Theresa May saying the other day, yeah, we need to look into it, but it's like, yeah, maybe in the distant future, potentially after Brexit, because you don't know what's going to do to growth. You can kind of like lock down so many bits of your economy because of this, especially the growth in tech. Right now, tech and making things automated and, pushing the IT industry is the biggest thing in the world right now. Go read about it. It's really big right now. Autonomous vehicles, all that type of stuff. It's really big right now. So blockchain technology, believe it or not, has a good part in all those types of things, in the Internet of Things, etc. So they don't want to, cut down on growth because of that. But that being said, yeah, Malta, they're pushing ahead. There's questions around it. What their intentions are. It seems as if they're trying to control a lot of what's going on for good reasons, but then there's also the fact that they're one of the biggest banks there. They've actually got a large stake in it, and that bank has actually blocked cryptocurrency purchases, even to stuff like Coinbase. So then kind of gives you other questions about why that's the case, pretty much. And what are their true intentions? Are they trying to, slow down everything, get control of it, and pretty much centralize everything, which again, in the space, as you know, isn't really what we want. But yeah, that's it, really.
Yeah, that's a good summary of everything. I mean, Courtney covered it all.
Yeah,
you got, it's alright. No, you got the detailed breakdown, guys, that from courtesy of Courtney. But yeah, no, that's all of that is super interesting. It definitely will. Other countries be looking at what they're doing and be modeling it, and that's basically what they do, like with everything. With regulate countries always borrow things from each other.
Exactly, yeah. The thing here's the thing, like a lot of countries now, like your smaller countries. I'm not just talking about your America, China, the UK, France, or Germany. Like these smaller countries in Europe are waking up and they're realizing that we need to basically prepare ourselves for this new digital age. And like I'm just a fan of geopolitics. I do keep up with this stuff, and a lot of countries like Estonia, Romania have invested so much in their technology in the past 10 to 15 years that it's ridiculous, and they're finally realizing that, okay, well, this is where we should probably like put our money in and like basically hedge our bets. So again, like Romania have done a lot. They have a lot of like people in the tech. Estonia have a lot of blockchain companies and ICOs actually sprouting up from there. And Malta have actually decided that we're going to become one of them now. So they've already like said like we're going to go for this. So what that says for like obviously the first world countries, the tech leaders. Well, I understand their position. Again, it's kind of back to what we were saying before. They want to see how it pans out. It's much easier to do it with a smaller economy. It's clear to see that the UK government are doing that with Gibraltar, because obviously Gibraltar use pounds. So I'm sure they're trying it out with a small community which they control. So it'll be interesting to see how we'll be watching closely how it happens, how it goes into Gibraltar.
Definitely, and we all know that regulation is a big factor, and one person who's been keeping their eye on that, and the ICO space in particular, and how something needs to be done is Vitalik Buterin, actually, the founder of Ethereum. He's come up with a brand new type of ICO, which is basically a fusion of a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, which basically is allows people to vote for certain things through a smart contract, which is decentralized, so there's no space for tampering with the votes, and an ICO, and he calls it a DAICO, or DICO if you will. And basically what this does is it allows the people who have invested in an ICO to basically have a say in where the funds are allocated, how they're spent, how much goes to the team, depending on what is in the smart contract. They also have the ability to, and this one's quite interesting actually, to self-destruct the smart contract if they need to. And you might be thinking, why would they ever want to do that? Well, if, for example, like the scam guys that we're talking to you guys about before that left penis on their website, if you found out that they had taken your funds and it was in a smart contract somewhere, and you weren't getting it back and they left penis, you wouldn't hesitate to self-destruct that smart contract so they didn't get anything out of it. And not only does it stop them from getting away with the funds, it also takes away the incentive for other scams to come here and make scam ICOs and take your money, because they're not going to get anything out of it. If anything, they're doing it all, going through all that trouble building that stuff for nothing, and also risking going to jail down the line. So it's definitely a great idea. Whether people are going to take it up, that's a different question, but right now it's being tested. I will leave a link below where you guys can read the breakdown of this. It goes into a lot of detail, and there are other features that are quite complicated, and he basically talks about how it will self-destruct if there's a 51% attack, and raising the fund tap, and loads of other details. And I think there's a couple of articles on this as well. And for you developers out there, he's got the code there for you guys to see in Solidity, I believe.
Yeah.
So you guys can go out there and check it out for yourselves if you understand Solidity. Look, I like this idea, and I don't only like the idea, I like the fact that he's actually looking for a solution to kind of help the space without heavy-handed regulation, and still keeping the power within the people who are invested, which is only right, that they get a say in this. But there is an issue that I can foresee with this, because if you give the people the power, who's to say that they're the best people to know what's going on? Who are they to vote? Just because they have invested doesn't mean they know where the money should go. Yeah, and what should happen with that. And with the same token, these people might just be just as malicious, or they might actually, they might not actually. I've actually kind of forgot what I was going to say there. So basically, if you're an ICO company, why would you want to give up that power? It's just it's a bit risky really for you to do that sort of thing, and it might turn people away from starting their own ICOs and stuff like that.
Well, I think, could it also potentially, like, on the side of things, if you give people that ability, could potentially, when you do get regulated, you can use it as like a, look, we allow them to do this, so isn't that a good thing? Like, in order to kind of ensure, I don't know, more of a case of to ensure that you look like you're actually trying to help people. You're looking like you're trying to be more secure. You're looking like you're trying to be kind of a good ICO. Basically, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah. And I think that's something that you could always argue. I think for ICO to take this on board, or implement it, or CRYPTOCURRENCIES to implement this, it would be a case of, look what we're doing here. Come here, invest in us because we're doing this, and you've got more control. And it's like a selling tool, in effect. That's how I'd most likely see it.
Yeah, you're right. Like it could be used as a marketing tactic, an effective one if it's adopted. It's just, I think it's just a cool idea, really, and it's just nice to be experimenting with this type of thing. Eventually, I'm sure this isn't like the best way to deal with it, but eventually, because this is there, someone can build on top of that and build on top of it, and this is how progress happens.
Yeah, I think really it's a good time for Ethereum to be doing this type of stuff. You know, them forward thinking and kind of providing something for other ICOs to jump on as they're investing in to Ethereum in effect.
Yeah, like I think it's a really good idea. But to be a devil's advocate, and obviously looking at it, like obviously we understand game theory, for example, and like the whole fact is in its name is a theory, and there are problems to game theory. So like as like I'm just looking at it, I can see there could be problems with it. Like, and here's one of the problems. I'm going to say you pump and dump groups.
Yeah.
And it's the whole fact that okay, well you have this this DA ICO. There's not a lot of volume, and now someone can do a drastic change in the price, or like do a massive buy, causing the price to rise, and then having a lot of power in terms of the vote of like what they're gonna do with it. Now another thing as well is obviously like how do we decide when people can vote? Saying like mob rules isn't always the best thing.
Sure.
Like there's a lot of problems with this whole game theory aspect of it. Like it makes sense when it's kind of like a one-on-one basis. That's how like in my opinion anyway. But like if there's very drastic price changes, like how's that going to handle the vote? Like what determines whether like well I think they should add this like some like you can only vote when there's stable prices and what determines that because drastic price changes could make like very negative votes or positive votes,
true.
Depending. So I think they thought about this though, because it's a very logical way of thinking to see it, and like they must have thought about this, and they did kind of like edge on it. So it seems like they haven't got all the answers for it.
Yeah, right now it's just in like a beta mode sort of thing. Exactly. They're just kind of testing it. So we'll have to see how it kind of turns out, and I look forward to it. I look forward to them developing it. Maybe perhaps by the time they finish, it might not even be called DA ICO. It could be called something completely different, and be used quite commonly and widely, and things. A lot of the issues in the ICO space will be solved or partially solved, because there's certain things you're never going to be able to fix, and they happen in even IPOs of today. And that's why you have things like people like Jordan Belfort and stuff, Wolf of Wall Street for people who don't know, you know, scamming people and things like that. So it's just one of those things. The financial markets are always going to be a dangerous place, but anything to help them be a bit safer is a good thing, I think. And that kind of brings us to the end of the podcast today. Oh yeah, one thing I did want to mention is some people enjoyed music during the podcast. You know, in the background, in one of the in the videos, we had a bit of music in the background just quietly, and some people hated it. So we're just gonna leave it to a vote. I'm gonna put music behind this one because I didn't put music behind the last one, but for those of you who like it, leave a vote or leave a like or comment. Just let us know, and then we'll put all your votes together and we'll decide whether from now on we'll have music in the background or not. But yeah, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and a comment. Tell us why you enjoyed it. If you hated it, leave a dislike and tell us why you hated it, and hopefully we can change the stuff that you didn't like and improve. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time.
Alright then, take care guys.
See you guys next week.